Choose Your Legends is in my opinion still one of the coolest things Fire Emblem has ever done. A yearly popularity poll testing the appeal of characters, seeing who people gravitate towards, and that for 30 years of history it feels like something more franchises should do. And even if the true cultural significance of Choose Your Legends is not what it once was, it remains a fun time at the start of the year. But of course, where there are winners, there are also losers. And especially in recent years, I've found myself actually more curious to see who's dangling at the bottom rather than who comes out on top. So I figured, how about we take a look at the losers of the years and try to get to know them. Who are these men no one seems to know or care about? And yes, spoiler alert, a woman has never ended at the bottom of the list. We start of course with 2017, which was obviously a busy year with many voters, a voting system that was yet to be changed to the standard of the future, and it still lacked many votable options, especially in the NPC department. As such, the loser of the year was a playable character, which has happened later down the line as well, but it isn't super common. At least our unlucky character, Glade from Freyja776, can always say he was the most voted loser of all time, receiving 17 votes, a point total that will likely never be broken by the last place finisher ever again. When looking at Freyja, it's not hard to see why Glade would end up so forgotten. Not only is Freyja obviously a very overlooked game in general, he might also just be the most forgettable character in the entire game. He doesn't join until chapter 13, has one of the most milquetoast and boring designs I've ever seen. His sole personality trait is that he's loyal, very unique for a knight that one. He has roughly 10 lines in his recruitment chapter and nothing beyond that, and as a unit he is also far from spectacular. He's a pre-promote in the same class as his best friend Finn, who has been with you since the first chapter of the game, and the only thing he has kinda going for him is his leadership star, giving your entire army slight bonuses, and the fact that he can grant you a brave bow on his recruitment chapter by interacting with his wife Selfina. I guess that if you're Japanese and really into the history of the Jug Draw games, you might also know a bit more about Glade thanks to Leinster's Fall, which is a collection of short stories written by the development team of Freyja that, among other things, gives a bit more insight into Finn and Glade's friendship, giving him some much needed character building that the game itself lacked. You can find it translated on Serene's Forest if you're interested. But apparently, short stories are not mandatory reading before voting in Choose Your Legends, and so Glade ended up at the bottom. In 2018, Choose Your Legends was slightly altered to become more like what it is today, with pretty much the exact same rule set and votable characters, minor changes notwithstanding. Due to the influx of NPCs, this time around a playable character did not end up dead last, but instead the questionable honor being shared between Bloom from Genealogy of the Holy War and Garth from the then brand new Shadows of Valentia. During the first edition, Bloom had already performed poorly, finishing in second last with 1 point more than Glade, but because Glade now benefited from a sort of underdog effect, Bloom was pushed to the bottom with a meager 7 votes. Bloom is the Duke of Friesch, appearing in the second half of Genealogy of the Holy War, and you could make the argument that, while he's hardly Marth, he is probably too relevant to end this low. Bloom is the source and wielder of the tome Mjolnir, one of Jug Draw's holy weapons, and he is the husband of Hilda and father of Ishtar, both of whom have performed significantly better in Heroes than the man in their lives, which also includes his son Ishtar. While from a game perspective, Bloom is basically just another boss, it is worth pointing out he has a pretty interesting dynamic within the story, being against the child hunts his own wife partakes in, yet failing to really stand up to it like his daughter Ishtar does. He kinda represents the silence in tyranny, and how that can turn people who recognize evil but don't do anything to stop it into becoming part of the problem. His fellow loser Garth was, like I said, a new character at the time, and not exactly the one in Shadows of Valentia most people were impressed by. Part of that is probably because Garth isn't even a unique character. He has the exact same design, voice lines and everything else as another character from the game, Barth, who despite his terrible name scored a little better in the same Choose Your Legends. Anyway, Garth is one of Grief's subordinates and fought by Celica's ragtag army at the Sovian coast at the start of Act 3. While he does appear in Gaiden, he did not have a single line of dialogue, and while Shadows of Valentia didn't exactly make him much of a talker, he does now at least says something, such as the fact he plans to sell Katria and Pala upon capturing them. Yeah, he's not exactly redeemable, and that might also be the reason why Garth has never really benefited from the underdog effect. The most votes he has ever received is a meager 41. That was in Choose Your Legends 3, which also brought us a new loser to take a look at, a playable character even. Frost debuted in the Satellaview exclusive game Fire Emblem Arcania Saga, and if it had stated that, he probably wouldn't have even been votable. But because New Mystery of the Emblem brought all these characters back, Frost was eligible in the perfect position to receive a whopping 11 votes. He is a bishop from Macedon who initially fights alongside the wicked Reuben and his deserters because he is being blackmailed, but when the Macedonian princess Minerva shows up, he switches sides. Then he also later joins Marv's quest after meeting with him while crossing a mountain pass. Because New Mystery has supports, sort of, it has conversations at least, Frost is also the first and at this point in time only character to have, let's call it supports, and still end up at the bottom of the rankings. Sure, he only has one convo with Chris, but still, it's more than what any of the other losers can say, even those that are playable. In 2020, 3 houses was added to the Choose Your Legends ballot, heavily shaking up the entire thing. And when the votes were tallied up, we ended with 3 characters all at the least amount of votes, being 11, the same as Frost the year prior. The first of these is Delvin, a playable character from Genealogy of the Holy War. When we're talking actual units, these are the type of names I would expect to end up this low. Delvin is the substitute character for Skadich if Era is not paired up during Gen 1, and like this entire crop of characters, that means he is basically a carbon copy of him in every meaning of the word. As such, why you would ever vote Delvin rather than Skadich is beyond me, even if Delvin has a unique conversation with Tristan where he calls him a sexy man. You would think that would appeal to at least some parts of the fanbase, right? Another character that ended up last this year was Halcyon, who is, across the board, one of the worst performers in Choose Your Legends ever. The highest number of votes he has ever had is 26, and that was actually the year prior to this, so he never benefited from any underdog effect either. Anyway, Halcyon also hails from Guidance/Shadows of Valentia and is met by Celica in the Sage's Hamlet. He is a former High Priest of the Duma Faithful who has lost his position in favor of Jeddah, which may sound like he's up to no good, but Halcyon is by all accounts a good guy. And a pretty important good guy too. He tells Celica that Milla is sealed in Falchion, he allows Alm to promote after Celica has spoken to him, and he is the one that looked after Conrad following the fire all those years ago. So yeah, in lore, pretty important, but in game, he's just another old guy with a staff. And then there is the third person stuck in this tie, who is Hayden, the only character from the Sacred Stones to ever end up in last place. Just like Halcyon, he is pretty forgettable from a game perspective, but in the lore he is far from the least relevant character Fire Emblem has ever seen. He is the king of Frelia, the father of Innis and Tana, only 2 of the most popular characters of the entire GBA era. But it seems that DNA came from their unseen mother. While he doesn't appear much in the story beyond the first few chapters, he does survive to see the end, which for a Fire Emblem father is already better than most. And he is playable in the Creature campaign, the only character to not die in the story to which that applies. Now, it doesn't help that his design is honestly pretty uninspired for a parent of such important characters. His portrait screams one chapter boss to me. And when that's all that accompanies your Choose Your Legends vote, you're in trouble. On to 2021, Choose Your Legends 5, where 2 characters shared the honor of being the worst performing ones. Once again, an NPC from Shadows of Valentia made the cut here. Those really didn't capture the hearts of fans, with the name in question being Dolph, a summoner of Necro Dragons who is an underling of Jeddah. He is really in everything just a weaker, less interesting version of his superior. His design is just a thinner, less unique version. He too tries to trick Celica into willingly sacrificing herself, which she nearly does, and as the boss of his only chapter appearance in Dolph Keep, he too is an annoying caster, but not even remotely as annoying as Jeddah himself. So yeah, no wonder that he was left with this many votes, especially as Jeddah isn't exactly a voting magnet either. Dolph has to share his place as one of 2021's biggest losers with Alder from Radiant Dawn. This was the very first year that Alder was eligible for votes, and, well, let's just say that might as well have never happened, because in the vast majority of years that followed, Alder was near the bottom of the list, and he was the first character to finish in the last spot twice, because he did it again in 2023. So, what warrants this negative reception? Well, if we're being honest, Alder honestly should probably never have been eligible. Don't get me wrong, it's not like he's a one-chapter boss or anything, but in a world as vast, lore-heavy and with so many characters as Telly is, he was never gonna amount to anything. Alder is a lieutenant in Jared's Imperial Occupation Army, and yet is never even fought within Radiant Dawn. He only appears in cutscenes and the like, which already shows how insignificant this guy really is. If you're a minor enemy general and you're not even fought, what are you doing in Choose Your Legends, let's be honest. I wish there was more to say about Alder, but honestly, this is about it. His dialogue doesn't reveal anything of his personality beyond the fact he is satisfied to be aligned with Jared, who he deeply respects. His most memorable moment will forever be taking the fall for Jared at the hand of the Black Knight, but in a series filled with sacrifice and death, this is hardly the one that sticks in the mind. A very understandable repeated loser, this one. When it comes to Choose Your Legends voting, these were bad years to be a fan of the Talia saga, particularly Radiant Dawn. Because following Alder's last place in 2021, the next 3 years would also see Atalia's character end at the bottom of the list. In 2022, the honor went to Jorge. And let's put it this way, if you thought Alder should have never been eligible, Jorge is even worse. This dude is effectively the Anna of Talius, running the item shop in the base camp, which does mean he appears in several base conversations, and he is certainly a bit more prominent and memorable than Alder, even if his role in the story is much smaller. Also interesting to point out is that 2 years prior to his shameful last place, Jorge was actually added to Heroes, meaning he was already in the game at this point, which was, at the time, unique. None of the characters I have covered so far were or are in Heroes right now. Jorge is. And that was all probably because of a surprisingly good showing in that year's Choose Your Legends. In the 4th edition, Jorge ended up with nearly 7,000 votes, enough to land him the 27th spot, which is higher than Ingrid, Rhea, the Black Knight, and our brand new winners Sigurd and Azura. And yet, the next year he fell all the way back to 27 votes, which was then reduced to 6 in 2022 when he finished at the bottom. How is that possible? Well, I don't know. I've really done my research in both English and Japanese, but no one seems able to explain how this was possible. There are some people who suspect botting from a Reddit user who seemed to like Jorge a bit too much and suspiciously predicted this would happen against all odds, trying to rally people behind him, but I can't say for certain he or she is involved. If you are watching this video right now though, come clean and tell the truth. Either way, Jorge is probably the character with the most bizarre Choose Your Legends history, and while he's not the character to gain the most votes in 1 year compared to the last, no one has ever jumped as many places as Jorge did 2 years prior to ending up in the last spot. Like I said, in 2023 the grand loser was Alder again, putting Radiant Dawn's streak at 3, only for it to continue in 2024, when the last spot was covered by Mustin. He got a massive 1 vote. The shared lowest anyone has ever had, since it has never happened a character didn't get votes. His record was matched though just this year by, well, Mustin again, as well as Halcyon again, and a third character I'll cover when we get there. For now, the spotlight is on Mustin, although there is not much to say. Mustin is Jorge without the base conversations and the Choose Your Legends history. There is literally nothing to say about Mustin whatsoever. He runs the armory in your base camp. That's it. That's all there is to it. I know I said it for Alder and Jorge too, but I do not understand why Mustin is votable. IS must have known this guy wouldn't get far when they included him. It seems pretty likely that he, Halcyon and Alder are gonna be fighting for the title of worst performing Choose Your Legends character until the game dies, which I guess makes him memorable in his own right. Now, at this point in time, the main player base of Heroes and voter base of Choose Your Legends was not what it once was. Many players who had actual history and familiarity with the series had dropped the game over the years, and a bigger and bigger percentage of players was more familiar with Heroes than any other title. Don't get me wrong, this isn't meant as a slight to those people. Enjoy what you want and vote for the characters that excite you, even if they're basically just eye candy with very bare stories and personalities to them. I'm bringing it up because it starts showing in the results big time. And I don't just mean at the top, where everyone can notice it. It's also at the bottom. In 2025, some of the lowest scoring characters are super important to their game of origin. We're talking Valadar, main villain of Awakening, Jeddah, one of the main villains of Shadows of Valentia, and even several Free Houses characters. Sure, not Dimitri or Edelgard, more so Tomas and Elfric, but still, in prior years you had to wade through a lot of no-names to get to any characters from some of the series' best-selling games. And now some had single-digit votes. I guess it is the curse of being an old grimy man in a gacha game. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because one of the two losers of 2025 is Vel, the main villain from Freysia 776. And of course I know Freysia wasn't a blockbuster, but still. Dude is the main antagonist of the game, he's the final boss. The idea that he finished dead last with 2 votes is crazy when you look at his status. I mean, I feel like I can't even describe who Vel is, and not because he's nearly non-existent, but because that's basically impossible without just explaining the entire plot of Freysia. And I don't think that's the best direction to take this video in. And the same kinda applies to the character he tied with, which is Barf. Yes, Garf's brother of a different mother, who has the exact same design, voice, you name it. His role in the story of Shadows of Lentia is different though, as he is the person responsible for the death of Valbar's family, which is certainly noteworthy, but probably doesn't lend you too much sympathy votes. And neither does sharing artwork with another character in a game entirely focused on PNGs. It's honestly a miracle Garf and Barf haven't ended up at the bottom more often. And that brings us to the most recent year, as of the moment at least, 2026. Like I said earlier, Halcyon and Muston are once again shared last, the second time for both of them, but they are accompanied by a third name who is new to the spot. And once again, this one really shows a change in voting behavior. When this video started, I was talking about Freysia and Genealogy, games we can't even play in the West. But now we have Hayataka, a character from Fire Emblem Fates, the second best-selling game in the series, in dead last. While never at Jorge levels, Hayataka actually had a pretty decent showing throughout the history of Choose Your Legends, ending up with around or over 100 votes in several years. However, in his case, it seems likely this painful last place is the result of finally being added to the game, ironically enough. Because of that, his few fans got what they wanted and dropped their support like a brick, leaving just one meager vote behind. Anyway, Hayataka is a Hoshiden general in charge of Fort Dragonfall and the boss of Conquest's 9th chapter only, which would usually not be enough to be votable, but I guess that Fates' capture mechanic helped elevate him in that regard. Especially since he is the only capturable spear fighter in Conquest, so if you are really that desperate for one, he's your only option. On the other hand, he has exactly 2 lines of dialogue in the entirety of Fates, his battle quote and his death quote, so from that perspective, this final spot doesn't really feel too out of place. It says enough that the vast majority of his personality is completely original to Heroes, it was never shown in the original game. But to stay positive, unlike his fellow losers Halcyon and Muston, I wouldn't be surprised if Hayataka never ends up this low again. After all, his track record is solid, much better than the sole vote he got this year, and if the recent years are anything to go by, even 3 votes would be enough to never finish bottom again. Let's see if he and all those other past losers can pull it off next year. That's been all from me, but I'm curious. What is the lowest performing character you ever voted for? Share it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing. And if you really want to support me, you can now become a channel member to get all kinds of fun perks and help me keep bringing these videos to your doorstep every week. For now, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.